Hello, Pierre. How are you?
Yes, hello from Denver. I think I'm in Denver. Is today Wednesday? Yes, today's Wednesday, and I'm in Denver.
Well,
you get to the point in the playoff series where you forget what day it is.
100%. We landed at 3:14. I did a 3:20 hit with Bryn, and drove straight into the studio. So here we are. So I'm having to recall the days as well. Today's Wednesday. I think we're on Wednesday. Look, this show is called Oilers Now, so for a purely self-indulgent reason, let's briefly bring up the fact that Edmonton has rallied from 2-0 down to a 3-2 series lead. You worked this series last year. The Kings finished 4 points ahead of Edmonton in the regular season. Both teams had 48 wins. Darcy Kemper in for the Vezina. He was brilliant in last night's game, to say the least. The Oilers' A-grade scoring opportunities first period were 7-0 for Edmonton. The expected goals in that game for the Oilers was 8, according to a couple different models. They ended up with 3, and they only beat Kemper with 2. Pierre, are you surprised after Edmonton dropped the first 2 games in LA 6-5 and 6-2 that Edmonton's now up 3-2?
I don't know if the word is surprise, but I'm certainly intrigued by what's happening. And it's funny because I think there's a mirror image of what's happening in my series, what's happening in your series, and which is that the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers felt like they were teams that needed about another 2 weeks before the playoffs started to get their act together for health reasons, for not playing well. It's unbelievable how similar the Oilers and the Stars were coming into the playoffs. And, of course, I will tell you right now, the Stars were lucky that they were tied 2-2 after 4 games. They were outplayed for most of those 4 games, but grinded out 2 wins somehow. Well, we know what happened with Edmonton in Game 4. And you know, they completely dominated the Kings last night. I watched it on TV. The Dallas Stars, Pete DeBoer came out and said after Game 5, that was the best game the Stars have played in 6 weeks. And so the parallels between Dallas and Edmonton, 2 teams that, you know, are perennial contenders, always go deep, is that you weren't quite sure if the calendar and health was going to hurt both teams. Like, are they going to get their act together on time? And isn't it interesting that the Oilers and the Stars both have played their best game in a long time in Game 5, and both are up 3-2 now in a series in which a lot of people picked the other team to win, right? So it's really interesting, the parallels.
I picked Colorado, and with all due respect to the season the Kings have had, they are not the Colorado Avalanche. They don't have Cale Makar driving it on the back end. They don't have Nate McKinnon. You know, I used to see Scott Housen was in Columbus, and listeners and fans on the show used to make jokes when Scott was the GM of Columbus that we had Scott on more than we had Steve Tambolini on, because he used to do the show about once a month. And I'm a big believer in CMAC, Chris McFarland, and it's when you think about I don't know if we've ever seen a playoff team that was really good to begin with make as many changes as Colorado made. Do you wonder maybe if, you know, like he changed out the goaltending, he had to do that. You know, Nate just, like, they got a wonderful return for Rantanen, but there's 10 changes to the team. Or is it a byproduct? They're playing a team that knows how to win Dallas, and that's part of the reason why they're down 3-2. It's not an issue of gelling or anything like that.
Well, this is subjective, but I believe that Dallas and Colorado are 2 of the top 5 teams in the NHL.
There you go.
And they happen to be playing in the first round because the NHL's playoff format is ridiculous. So that's number one. You know, someone's going to lose this series, and they're going to be super upset because arguably the 2 most aggressive teams in terms of trying to improve their teams for the deadline were Dallas and Colorado. And so someone's going home early. And so, listen, we talked a lot about both teams here in this series. But here's the thing about Colorado, and a lot of this will be my column tomorrow in The Athletic, but, you know, ever since winning the Cup in 22, they won 1 playoff series. And if they lose tomorrow or Saturday, that's 1 playoff series win since winning the Cup. That's somewhat shocking. And the reason it's somewhat shocking is that I remember leaving the rink in Tampa in late June 22 after they beat the Lightning to win the Cup. And I'm looking at McKinnon and Makar and Nichushkin, and I'm going, you know, they are the next Tampa or the next Chicago. This is the team that's going to win multiples. I just remember having that feeling walking out of the rink, and it has not happened that way. And there's a lot of reasons. I mean, not having their captain for 3 years is certainly one of them. He's finally back, and what a story that is, Landeskog. But, I'll tell you who's been mostly a no-show in this series is Valerie Nichushkin.
Yeah.
He got 1 goal and 0 assists in 5 games, and he was arguably the best player in the Stanley Cup final in 22. Like, the most impactful player in that final. Not in the whole playoffs, but in that final series. And he's been mostly a no-show. So it's strange. I mean, Nate McKinnon's been amazing. He leads the series in points, and he's been an absolute superstar every night. Cale Makar's just been okay, which is interesting. And he talked about that today after practice, by the way. But he feels he needs to bring his game up here for tomorrow night. But at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it, and there's some legitimate reasons for why they just haven't gone back to that level as a contender, they'll be pretty darn disappointed losing this series if they do, by the way. I'm not – if there's anyone that can win the next 2, it's the Colorado Avalanche. But 100%. If they lose this series, to a Dallas team that didn't have their top 5 defensemen in the world in their lineup and their top scorer, Jason Robertson, geez Louise, that's a tough pill to swallow for Colorado.
You nailed it. That's the thing for me, right? Like when I picked Colorado, I'm sitting there. They don't have Heiskanen. I love Thomas Harley. I mean, I did his dad, Brian Harley's games when he was a goalie in medical school at the U of A before he moved to Syracuse, New York, and set up his practice. And so Thomas is a wonderful story. And he's had an unreal year for the Dallas Stars. But
yeah, he's been great.
But Miro Heiskanen's a top 10 defenseman on the planet. And then Robertson's, he's their trigger man. So I'm thinking to myself, there's no way Colorado loses to that team. And just further to what you said, Pierre, back in 22, when the Oilers lost in round 3 in the conference final, they were just beaten by a better team. Like, you lose 4 straight, you're beat. Edmonton got, there were 3 1-goal games, game 4 was they got beat by Colorado. Colorado was deeper and better and looked like they were going to be able to, all I was thinking of after Edmonton lost at home in Game 4 that year is Edmonton's going to have to do a lot of work to match what the Avalanche have. So I'm with you. I'm a little bit stunned as well.
And arguably with adding Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle down the middle. I mean, Charlie Coyle's been pretty good. He's their best face-off guy in this series. Brock Nelson's been up and down, but better of late. This is arguably even a deeper team than 22. For the Avalanche. So it's really interesting. But, it's the same way that I think if the Kings end up losing your series to Edmonton, and it very much looks like it right now, you have to ask yourself, you're LA, where do we go from here? Because 4 years in a row losing to Edmonton, and I get it, the Oilers were the favorites each time, but to not take advantage enough of no Ekholm, is, we just talked about Noah Heiskanen for Dallas. Well, no Ekholm. I mean, geez, Louise, I don't know.
So that brings
the series.
Yeah,
boy.
So Pierre, we got Pierre LeBrun on from TSN and the Athletic. Bob Stauffer with you in Oilers now. So that brings us to something that Stan Bowman did, because they went out and picked up John Klingberg during the season, and it looked like a miss. Looked like a miss for the Oilers. It did. He couldn't stay healthy. Teams that hard-pressed forechecked against him got in on him, and turnovers were created. And, he hasn't played a lot the last couple of years. But then he went and got Jake Wallman. And you mentioned no Matthias Ekholm. But both Wallman and Klingberg are playing 20 minutes a game for Edmonton. And, Kulak steps up every year in the playoffs for the Oilers. He does. It's just who he is. He's better in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. And so they've got 5D that can play over 20 minutes per game, and they're all experienced guys back there. And I think there's got to be. I'm frankly stunned how well Klingberg's played in the series. I think it's benefited him that they're playing LA, a team that doesn't forecheck really aggressively. Right. You know what I mean? And Wallman's +8 in the series. So the Oilers did do something about the old saying you can never have enough defensemen in the playoffs. It's been a factor. I'm watching LA having 4D playing 30-plus minutes in that game in Edmonton on Sunday night. And here's the Oilers with 5 guys spreading the minutes around, 20-plus minutes, but nobody over 26. Makes a difference.
Yeah. It really does. And you're right to be shocked by Klingberg. There was no evidence to suggest this could possibly happen, let's be real, from what we had seen.
Right.
So, but, yeah, it is. It's interesting. And You know, the Oilers are the most intriguing story in the league right now because before the playoffs started, I remember thinking, I don't know what the version of the Oilers we're finally going to get for the end of the series. Like, when does this whole puzzle come together? I mean, you're with them every day.
I would have said that. I said the same thing. I didn't know what the Oilers had.
Right. Like, they're finally getting their team in game what? So we're in game 87 of the entire year, if you include regular season and playoffs. The Oilers got their 18 minus Ekholm on the ice. Think about that. Yeah. I mean, it really is, right? I mean, that's the closest version to who they want to be. Kane and Klingberg and, you know, everyone's in there other than one key piece, but this is the closest they've been to it. And now they look like they've gone next level here.
Well, and and they recognize, you know, they made some bets on Skinner and Arvidsson. I think it's fair to say those didn't necessarily quite work out the way people thought. Like, I don't think they're as fast a team up front, but I want to see where Evander Kane was a shadow of himself by the time we got to the Dallas series last year. Like, his numbers, Pierre, his numbers against LA, okay? 14 goals, 19 points in 22 career playoff games against the Kings. That's pretty good for a guy that's not on the first unit power play. You know what I'm saying?
And let's be clear, there's only one unit.
Right. Like, McDavid's got 46 and 23 in L.A. Leon's got 20 goals and 40 points in 23 in L.A. Hyman's got 12, 7, 19 and 23 against L.A. Nuge has got 18 points in 23 against L.A. Bouchard has 31 in 23. That's the first unit power play. Kane's not on the first unit. He's got 14 goals in 22 games, including 2 and 4 games in this series after missing 10 months. So they don't have the speed of McLeod and Holloway and Fogle that they had last year supporting the lineup. But what they do have now is they have a healthy Kane. They have Corey Perry, who is, you know, the ageless wonder. He's found the fountain of youth here. Oh, and they picked up Trent Frederick, and last night was the first night that he looked a little smoother skating.
That's what I mean. This version of what this was going to look like, even after the trade deadline, is finally here for Edmonton, right? Like, the version of what could this be here with all these pieces. And, you know, again, let me bring it back full circle here before we go, like to Dallas and Edmonton. The parallel from the Stars and the Oilers are uncanny. If the Stars can somehow win tomorrow night, I got a feeling we're going to get the best of Colorado here, and we're going seven. But if somehow the Stars pull it off, can you believe that they bought themselves time to the second round and waiting on Iskanen, who's close, by the way, and then eventually Robertson? Like, watch out for Dallas. And I feel the same way about Edmonton.
Yeah.
If they can finish off LA and at some point, we'll see on Ekholm, you know, I know that's still an issue, but, you know, just these two teams buying themselves time and getting through the first round with all the questions they had, watch out, because you know what the pedigree is for the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars.
Yeah. Several years. Pierre, before we let you go, I'd be remiss without asking, there's no way the Maple Leafs are going to spit the bit here, are they?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I think they're going to win. It might take 7, though. It might take 7.
They'll win tomorrow. There's no way they're not winning that series. I mean,
I will say this: that there's no coming back from a reverse sweep with everything in place. Like that would just be. I don't know how that franchise could recover from that. I do think the Leafs will win, but I will also say this: you know, I think that there's more drama in that situation right now because they were up 3-0, because the reality is there's 3 overtime games in that series. And if it's actually 2-1 and then 3-1 and then last night Ottawa wins, I think it's a little less dramatic. If Ottawa caught a break in one of the earlier overtime games and the Leafs won the third. In other words, a lot of the games have been close. But it just so happens it went 3-0 Leafs, and now it's 3-2. And I think it exacerbates the idea of their demons and all the playoff scarring that they have as a core, no question.
They outplayed Ottawa in games 4 and 5, but that's hockey. It happens. Pierre, we love having you on the show. Thank you for joining us. And the Oilers now enjoy Game 5 tomorrow night. Game 6 tomorrow.
Game 6?
Yes, Game 6 in Colorado.
Yes, sir. I will. Right on, man. Thanks for having me. Love being on, Bob.
Thanks a lot. That is Pierre LeBrun.